Football academies are a crucial aspect of the beautiful game. Without the academies, there are no players for teams, and without teams, there's no football to be enjoyed. The sport is known to be a cutthroat and dog-eat-dog industry. However, I want to see if this is true and whether acquiring a football playing career is really like the flip of a coin. Throughout this documentary, I will be looking to assess whether football academies are a feasible option when aiming for a professional career in football. I will be speaking to both professional and semi-professional academy coaches and also professional footballer Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon, professional footballer. I'm mainly a striker. I can play wide, as a winger, play as a 10 in the midfield, but my main place is a striker. I started at Stoke when I was in year 2, so what age is that? Maybe like 5, 6. Was there from 5 or 6 till I was in year 10, so maybe 15, just before you get your scholarship. So I was there for a good 8 to 10 years.
And what years was it specifically that you were there?
So from year 2 till year 10. So that was, taking me back a while now. I think I got released in 2015. So if you roll that back, I'm not sure exactly when I started, but I finished it 2016.
And before you were at Stoke, was there a particular reason that you were scouted for?
I think it was just something to do with the infant school that I was at the time, just to try and get kids involved in sport. I was always very sporty anyway. Football was never my first love. My dad used to play basketball, so basketball was my main thing. So I kind of just fell into it just because my school pushed me to do it.
Were you scouted from a non-league or a Sunday league side, or were you scouted whilst you were playing at school?
So I scouted while I was playing at school, and that's what made me then go into Sunday football for a little bit.
Going back to the punctuality at Stoke, would you say that was the specific reason for your departure, or was there anything else in the mix?
No, at the time when I got told off, that's probably the polite way to say it, got told off about my punctuality and my weight. I was a chubby kid when I was younger. That was a turning point where I did change it round. But in academies, I don't know if you know, like, things change. Like, people higher up will go to different places. People get relieved of the jobs. It all works down from the first team, and we don't see change until it comes to our point. So when I was doing well and did everything which I was asked to do, to potentially take me into my scholarship years, personnel changed and someone else came in to take over the academy and literally got rid of all of our age group because he didn't think we were physically tall enough and built enough to play in a higher age group.
Is there anything that Stoke City could have done to support you during your time there, or after you left even?
I think at the start, the understanding the seriousness of football could have been spoke to me about sooner, instead of it just being all at once with somebody else who then took over. Because at a young age I played higher than my own age, so I just thought it was just what you do. I didn't know that it was a privilege to be playing at a higher age. So I think I took that for advantage, but if someone made me aware of the reasons why I'm playing with the older boys and where I could potentially go, then I think the penny would have dropped a little bit sooner. But then when I got released, because it was I was there for such a long time, and it was at that age where it was nearly going to be that next level, and that I think that support could have been there a little bit more. I know one of my coaches, who was also leaving at the time, he had a number of us who he wanted to sign, so he took it upon himself to try and get us into different clubs where he was going, so I can only thank him enough for that. But as a club, I think they could have helped the players to find different opportunities or give us options away from football as well. We kind of, luckily my parents are always big in education, so they had another route for me as well as trying to still play football.
My name's Jeffrey McGaw. I started playing football from a very young age, 8 years of age in Belfast. I just played for like a local weekend team. While I was playing for them, I got scouted for quite a number of teams in England. So from the age of 9 till 12, I was coming on trial back and forward. School half terms, weekends, on trial to maybe 10, 15 different teams around the UK. At the age of 13, I came over here to sign for Man City. So I moved to England away from my family. So I was at Man City for 2.5 seasons, and then I moved to Stoke, where I was there for six years. I left Stoke from the age of 20 and went to play for Luton Town for 2 years. Then moved around a few clubs. I played for Dover for a season, then I came back to the Midlands and played in the non-league scene. Played for Buxton, played for Kidsgrove Athletic, and then finished at Kidsgrove Athletic when I was 29, and took up coaching as I do now. So currently I coach Stafford Rangers which is a Saturday team, which is under 10s, and then the Berkshire, which is an under 11s and an under 12s. So I have 3 teams that I coach throughout the week.
And how long have you been coaching?
I've been coaching now, 6 years, on and off, yeah.
And were there any particular reasons that you got into coaching?
For me, it was just to give something back to the young kids and the players who I can teach from my experiences, the good ones, the bad ones, the things that I did well to make a certain level, the things that I could have done better. Hopefully I can take that into the next generation and teach them and help them improve their game to get to where they ultimately want to be. So.
And obviously your experience will be really, really valuable for those kids that you're teaching. So what would you say that your favourite thing is about coaching?
I think it's just seeing kids progress. It's seeing you take a kid who's maybe a little bit nervous, but you see has ability, and you just bring that out and just see them perform on a weekly basis in training and games and grow confidence to the point where they're happy and they're getting achievements from their ability of football. I think it's just, for me, it's the most important thing. There's a lot of kids in the game who have ability but maybe just don't have the confidence to show it. So that's one of the main things I look for in the coaching, is take them kids and give them the confidence and the backing to go and perform to the best they can, really.
Rob Williams, Academy Manager at Walsall.
And how long have you been managing the Walsall Academy for?
2 years. Prior to that, I was head of coaching at Shrewsbury for 3 years, and prior to that, I was head of coaching here for 2 years.
And could you please just give a bit of information as to what your role is like as Academy Manager and how it works?
Well, basically, it's overseeing everything from under 18s down to under 8s. And leading a team of staff in terms of running that programme. So, I have overall responsibility for everything from under 18s and below. So it's recruiting staff, recruiting players, coaching programmes, syllabus, building the link with the first team, managing that link with first team manager, first team coaching staff, liaising with the owners. So it's literally driving the minibus sometimes. It's literally everything.
And is there a particular reason that you became an academy coach at all?
Well, in terms of coaching, I became a coach because I love coaching. So, I've been coaching, I think this is my 29th season, coaching in some format, so I've done everything. I've done grassroots teams, senior non-league teams, international college teams, part-time coaching roles in academies, part-time coaching roles at non-league, full-time roles in professional football. I've done everything. So I coached because I coached because I love coaching. So that's kind of my primary reason for being involved in football, is that I love coaching.
So would you say that you've sort of built your way up from the bottom up to the top where you are now then?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
And is there a favourite thing that you have about coaching?
Yeah, just helping players, right? Just
Mm.
helping. So when I was a coach, it was helping players. When I was a coach developer, it was helping coaches. I guess fundamentally the most important thing is helping whoever you are working with, whether that's a player or a coach or a club, whatever it is, to achieve their potential, whatever that potential may be, right? I was lucky enough to have some good mentors and good role models along the way. So, hopefully I, in some way, do some of that for some of the people that we work with.
And would you say that you have many scouts come into your games? And if so, do they look out for particular skills in your players?
But it depends what they're looking for, right? So we have lots of scouts come to our games, lots more now than we did, because we've got better players in the building. They will look for whatever specific attributes they are looking for. So what we look for in a player might be different to what West Brom look for in a player, right? So it's every club will have a set of kind of characteristics and profiles they look for in their players. We've got a very clear one here. So, like us, they will be looking at, specific attributes they think suit their club and their environment and that they think have the potential to be a first team footballer.
If there's anything that you could do to improve football academies, just purely on a hypothetical, what would that be?
Uh, in the clubs that I've worked in and working currently, it would be increased resource. You could do more staff, more money fundamentally to employ more staff, to develop facility, and so on and so on. Because then the service you can offer to the kids can be even greater, right? So I think if there was one thing I would, love to have, it would be an increased resource that would allow me, So for example, we have to access universities for support with analysis.
Right.
I'd love to just employ an analyst myself. But, small clubs like us don't have the resource to do that. So we have to, be a bit more selective where our money goes in terms of budget. Whereas at a bigger club, they have an analyst for every age group, right? They have a full-time coach at every age group. We don't do that. So I guess if there was anything on the wish list, it would be a bit of increased resource that would mean we could develop our staff and some bits around sort of facility that would help support the players, perhaps. So if there was anything, it would maybe be that. But I also think there's something about not having everything so easy. So I think about our players. You have to show some resilience. You have to show a little bit of fight. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not.
Yeah.
We don't give them what like a Category 1 club would give them because we aren't in a position to do that. So I think it helps you develop and breed really hard working type kids. Do you know what I mean? Who are resilient and have to sometimes deal with things that maybe kids in bigger clubs wouldn't have to deal with. So I think there's pluses to it as well as negatives. They're probably very different in lots of ways. We would have the general level of player in our program would be better, so we've got better players. We generally will have more highly qualified coaches, more experienced coaches in some cases. Our program potentially be more structured. Obviously, fundamentally, the end goal for our players would be different to theirs. So ours is to become professional footballers, whereas in a grassroots environment, they're not going to be a professional footballer unless they come into somewhere like us or another professional club. So, I guess in some respects similar, there'd be structure, there'd be a coaching program, there'd be a number of staff employed to deliver that program. We probably have broader members of staff. So we have like a head of education, a head of player care, head of analysis. They probably may not have that in some instances.
Right.
So I guess there would be some similarities, but there would also be the obvious differences around the level of player, level of coaching, and the end goal being, if they're here, they've probably got a better chance of being a professional footballer.
I've never been in a non-league academy, so to speak. My only experience at Stoke was obviously training Tuesdays and Thursday nights. No, we started on Saturday. Sorry, where I said I first got there, and then I went into the weekdays, which was Tuesday and Thursday nights, and then we'd play on a Sunday. So that was consistent until I was like 14, 15, and then we started doing 3 days a week. So that would be Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, if my memory's right, and then we'd play on either the Saturday or the Sunday, depending on where our games were based.
So the professional one, obviously, they're run with a lot more money put into them nowadays. So the level of coaching is, on paper, a lot better. It's not always the case. I've been to a lot of academies where the coaches are great, and I've been to some where they're not. You know what I mean? So on paper, the quality should be better. Of what they're being taught, the ability they're learning every week. With regards to the non-league, it's maybe a little bit less money put into it, but you still have a lot of quality coaches. I think as long as the coach is teaching them the right basics of the game and encouraging them and driving them forward, the kids' ability will show. And it's been proven that a lot of kids have come from the non-league scene and gone into top flight football, and the other way around as well. So I think it's more to do with the environment they're in that the coach puts them and puts in place for them every week. That's the most important thing, I think.
You get more time to work on your techniques and stuff when you're at an academy like Stoke, because obviously you're doing it twice a week or you're doing it 3 times a week, and they will motor down your technical skills more than I'd imagine non-league do. I think non-league at that age is more about fun and just building a team together for lads to have games.
So when you were at Stoke, it was more about building those skills up. So if hypothetically you were to make it into the professional game, you can play with those skills.
Yeah, I see it as if you were at school, you'd have like a curriculum of what the kids have to try and achieve to make sure that they are able to then go to the next age group, because you'd have meetings every year at the end of the season, and if you're meeting them credentials, that's what will get you progressing to the next age group.
And from your own experience, would you say that there's a difference between the two?
Yeah, those things mentioned probably before. I guess. Yeah, I guess the biggest difference would be that there's an obvious, clear pathway to potentially be a professional footballer in a professional club, which they don't have at grassroots. They've obviously got to leave grassroots if they want to be a professional footballer at some point. And we are probably held to a higher standard, through things like audit process.
Right.
We get checked every year in terms of qualifications and the program we operate and the coaching hours we have, and so if they come here, for example, they would get more hours of coaching than at a grassroots program. So, and we're measured, so we're held to account by the Premier League to maintain a certain level and a certain standard. So, I guess that would be the biggest difference, or some of the biggest differences.
And
there's definitely a difference. Yeah, it's definitely a difference in terms of ability. The higher up the chain you go, but a lot of that ability can sometimes be the confidence that kids have got. You know what I mean? You can see players that might be playing in non-league academies that probably are, ability-wise, as good as the top-level players, but maybe they have a bit more confidence putting into them, a bit more desire to be pushed forward, and sometimes that helps. So there's a difference, there's a range, but I think a lot of the non-league teams who have good academies and good setups are now trying to build that bridge, trying to build that gap between the top and the bottom, and try and make it a little bit closer.
It's tough because I think as clubs they have to turn around some sort of level of local players for their own funding. I think I'm right by saying that. But on the other hand, if they are bringing players in from overseas, they are investing in a player more than someone who's come through the academy. So I'd assume my own opinion would be the overseas player is going to be at a higher advantage than what the local player is.
I think it varies. I think when I came from Northern Ireland, so at the time when I came over from Northern Ireland, there was me and another two lads who moved over just to that one club, and there was probably 2 or 3 years after that where 4, 5, 6 of my current players that I played with in that Northern Ireland team came over as well. So I think that's obviously just a little bit across the water, but you have the teams coming from Europe, from everywhere else, and I think for me, it depends. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of factors involved in it. A lot of factors involved in the environment you're in, the club, the coach, be that academy coach, first team manager. You have to have a bit of luck along the way as well. You have to be able to fit in that scene at the right time. You know what I mean? You might be at a club where the first team manager doesn't really fancy your style of play. That doesn't mean that that's the end for you. It just means that you might have to move on somewhere else. So I think homegrown talent, 100%. I think you see the big clubs now who are bringing the players through and giving them the opportunity. And like anything, it's being given the opportunity in life. Like it is in normal life. If you ain't given the chance and you ain't think, sometimes you can show what you can do. So I think homegrown players have a lot of possibilities. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. More of a chance now with all the rules around overseas players and so on. So yeah, and certainly somewhere like us, a small club playing in League Two as we are at the moment, you know, the opportunity to progress through our system and become a professional is easier than, say, being at Aston Villa, who play in the Premier League. So you've got to be a much better footballer to get through that system. So it's about the levels as well, right? So, you know, a League Two footballer, obviously, he's not as good as a Premier League footballer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Becoming a League Two footballer is probably a little bit easier. You've clearly got to have talent and ability and the physical athletic capability and all the rest of it. But the chance to get through here is probably greater than, you know, at some of the bigger clubs.
They are, in some respects, but then I think the higher you go, like your Man United, your Liverpools, and teams who have the money to recruit elsewhere, I think that's where it becomes harder for local English players. I know Vale have been doing really well with their homegrown players as of late. So it's another fine line where it depends where you are, I believe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as a kid, I didn't want anything other than to be a professional footballer. Was I great at school? Probably not. I should have maybe done a little bit more. But if you have something in your brain, especially as a little kid, that you play football, everyone wants to be a professional footballer. So the ones that do want to do that, I will never be one that would ever put that down. I'd always say, yeah, 100%. If you've got the ability, push yourself to the limit. If you get a good coach around you who can help you and develop you and push you, then there's no question about it that you can make it as at the top level, or you can, if you do push for the top and you don't make it to the top, you can drop down. I played till I was 29 and made good money from the game, playing lower league football, playing non-league football, and I enjoyed it. I still have love for the game today, and I still feel like I've achieved not as much as I wanted to, but I've achieved enough to give me some satisfaction to say, yeah, I pushed for something and I achieved okay. So I would definitely say yes.
You know, listen, with all due respect, if you're playing in grassroots football, then you're not in a professional environment, so there isn't a professional club at the end of it. So at some point, if you want to be a professional, you've got to come into a professional club. So your best chance of being a professional footballer at some point is to come into a professional football club. And obviously, academies are kind of the predominant breeding ground for that, you know, and obviously kids can come in at 16, might come in at 9. They come in at different times, you know, based on their level and where they're at and their development. And, you know, they may have been scouted earlier than others. That just, you know, sometimes is more by luck than judgment. But at some point, if you want to be a professional footballer, you have to be a professional football club.
I think it is based on talent and attitude and your applications. I think that is the main thing they look at. But I just believe that players who are based down there around more opportunities have a better opportunity to get somewhere in the game.
When you're on a football pitch, none of that thing gets taken into consideration. It's a football, and there's two players and the two teams, and it doesn't matter how much money you've got in the bank or how much money you haven't got in the bank. So I think that no academies that I've been with, it's ever been a problem where, like say I'm from a poor background myself. I'm from a rough area in Belfast. A lot of the kids I played with are from a rough area. Sometimes coming from the rough background gives you a bit more desire, get a bit more to think. And not to say there's some players who come from top backgrounds and made it as pros, but I think as a club and as a football as a whole, football is football. The ball's on the pitch and nothing else sort of matters in terms of them things, mate. So yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, exactly the same. There's no reason why. Listen, the only so you look at some of the big clubs locally. So some of the big clubs, for example, will put on transport. The kids who can't travel can travel into training. Do you know what I mean? They'll pay for taxis, whatever else. You know what I mean? They'll support families in terms of that. We won't do that because our resource is much smaller. So we have to recruit from close enough where they can get to us. But we'll put on transport to matches and whatever else because not everybody can afford to get there, right? So we have to try and make sure that every player has this, as near as damn it, as many opportunities as any other player would have if they come into our environment. Absolutely. Yeah,
I was going to try and do my PGCE to teach PD in high schools.
Is there any particular reason for that, or did you prefer anything else?
I don't know. I just always liked sport, and I was good at different sports. So to be able to, and my taster of doing it in primary schools with the company I was working with at the time, I just believed that my knowledge would allow me to do it at a higher standard with high school kids and get more into depth with the different sports. So that was the angle I was going for.
No. So, like I say, at school I wasn't great. I didn't try really hard because in my area I was one of the stars who was going to be a footballer and make it. When I came to England, it's the same again. I went to college one day a week just to do an MVQ, which I didn't really have anything. So when I didn't get offered a new contract in Stoke and I had to find another club, I went to Luton. Luckily I was okay. But while I was at Luton, then that's when I started to think about, okay, what is my plan B here? What have I got to fall back on? So the PFA put me through all my coaching badges up until the level I'm at now, put me through my personal training and another couple of qualifications, which then, so it took me till the age of 2021 to realise that I needed a plan B to carry on providing for the future, you know what I mean? So I think nowadays that's reversed now. A lot of kids now have a plan B forced on them from the age of 16, 17 by the clubs, which makes them say, like, okay, well, this is your plan B if this doesn't work out, because it might not be just ability. You might not make it because you're not good enough, but you might not make it because of injury, because of other factors that might be involved. So having a plan B, I think, is vital, and I think that's something that clubs do now with welfare officers and everything else, that they make you, if this doesn't work out, this is what I think I want to do, this is what I'm going to try and build up while I'm playing. And even pro footballers do it now as well. A lot of them they've got a bit more money than average people, so they'll invest it in things and businesses, and they'll have a plan B set up when they finish playing football. And I think you need that because you're more a mental side than not just earning money and whatever else. I think your mental, when you've been involved in football and you've been involved in a team sport on a daily basis, and that environment, if you come out of that environment, it can be very damaging to you. So you have to have something in place to keep your mind and keep everything active.
All part of that player care and transition package. So we've just had, we have 18 under 18 players, 9 second years, 9 first years.
Right.
So if I look at that group now, 1 second year's just signed a professional contract, 1 first year's just signed a professional contract. The other 8 second years haven't been offered a professional contract. 4 are going to university, 1's going into an apprenticeship, and so on. So they've all got, the next part of their journey kind of mapped out. So we do that with them while they're here, help them apply for uni, help them apply for scholarships, help them apply for apprenticeships, identify potential career routes, and so on and so on. So that hopefully if they don't become a professional footballer, they've got, like anybody leaving college, right, at 18 years old, they've got a bit of a plan, hopefully.
I probably say you need to be a little bit more disciplined from a younger age. But I wouldn't change much. Stop eating a lot of chocolate from a young age.
That's Tasha's bag.
Yeah.
She'd have the food in the bag when she's coming to school.
Yes.
Munch out of that.
Stop eating everybody's chocolate. Stop having everybody's seconds. But no, just I've enjoyed my journey, and I don't think my story would be as interesting if I didn't do it the way I've done it. So yeah, I'd probably just say if that light bulb was switched a couple of years before, then I could have had a little bit longer in the game than what I might have now. But I'm hoping I go till about 40. Hopefully.
For me, it would just, not that I didn't work hard, but it would be me that I would go back now and I would say literally put everything you have into that football. Everything. So when you finish training, so we used to train in the mornings, have our lunch, go home. Don't go home in the afternoon. Stay there, do actual work. Be on the football pitch, be in the gym, be in the classroom, whatever it may be. It's just do extra. If you do 100% and you can do an extra 20%, do it. That would be the main thing which I picked up for my whole time, and what I try and put into all the kids I do now is do not be scared to do extra. If you can do extra, do it now, because in the future and when you really need it, that's when it'll show. So that would be the main thing I would say to them. Yeah.
Do you think that extra work could help people that are in football academies now to?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like I say, I had a good time in academies. I did really well and whatever else, and I worked hard, but it's competition. So it's like, as much as you're in a team environment of 11, 12, 13 players, it's you against the other players, because not all of you are going to make it. Some of you might make it at the club you're at, some of you might go to another club, some of you might never make it, some of you might play non-league football. So as much as the friends and the teammanship and everything else, you have to do more. So if I'm in competition with you, I've got to do more than you. So if you're going home at 3 o'clock, I've got to stay for an extra hour. I've got to do hours extra work than you, because if I could do that every day throughout the long duration of my time, something's going to give. So you have to be willing to do extra than the person next to you.
Maybe start the career a bit earlier, maybe, because I started a little bit later.
Right.
So maybe start it earlier. But you have to remember times are different as well now, right? So when I left school, I'm 51, right? So when I left school, there was no coaching degrees. You could go to uni and study coaching. You know, if I'd said to my careers teacher at school, I'm going to be a football coach, he'd have told me to grow up and do a proper job. Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't these kind of jobs were for ex-professional footballers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think times have changed. Do you know what I mean? So I got into it a little bit later. You know, but other than that, probably not really. I've been lucky. I've been involved in coaching and education. So I'm a qualified teacher as well, right? So I've worked in college, uni, and stuff teaching. I've been in the game now for nearly 30 years, so I've had a pretty good go at it.
First and foremost, enjoy it. You're never going to achieve anything if you're not enjoying what you do. You're going to get setbacks, but not everybody's opinion is the same as others. So you got to be true to yourself and work hard and go for the next thing. But I'd always have a backup plan and always make sure you've got some kind of trade or education behind you, not just for now, but for later on if you did make it in the game.
And what would you say to your younger self if you could have your time again in football?
The main advice would be don't think it's the end of the world. Don't think it's the end of the world. If you're at an academy and you get released at 19, 18, 16, whatever it may be, keep your head, keep the right people around you, stay focused on your game, find a team of whatever level it may be, but find a team that's in the right environment for you to continue growing, because players adapt, players grow at different ages. I've been with players at the age of 14, 15 who are world beaters, players who are better than anything you can ever see. by the time 17, 18 they're at the game and not playing. Players who were average at 13, 14 who've carried on working and carried on being in the right environments, who've met it, not played at the top level, are now at the top level and playing. So I think the main thing I would say to anyone who maybe does get released, be down, let it affect you and be down and take it on board in that way, but use it as a positive, use it as a driving factor to push yourself forward. So what can you do to be better? What can you do to improve? What do you need around you to carry on growing? And within a season or 2 seasons, you can be back or above where you were before. You know what I mean? It took, when I got released from Stoke, I was gutted. You know what I mean? I could have easily just said, that's it, I'm just going to play non-league football, but I went and I tried, and I went to a couple of teams and offered a few things here and there, and then I took one which was good for a couple of seasons, went okay for them, dropped down, and eventually I ended up in non-league football for 4 or 5 seasons earning okay money, but it could have been sooner if I didn't push myself and put myself in that environment to carry on going. And I think it's the same old saying, isn't it? You can't give up. If it's your dream and you push it and you want to do it, push it to the highest level you can, whether that be non-league football, whether that be playing in the park with your mate. If you've pushed yourself to the max and that's what you can only achieve, then in my eyes you've done good.
Having spoken with all 3 of my interviewees, I am able to reach the conclusion that football academies in both professional and semi-professional respects are a feasibility. Although it won't be easy, if you're looking to become a footballer and you don't make it, do not worry, because non-league is on an upwards trajectory. And if that doesn't work out for you, be certain to have a plan B. Academies have links to universities, and if that's not for you, then there are plenty of other options, including apprenticeships and full-time careers. Places such as schools and football academies, in terms of coaching, will certainly value your experience.